This is tutorial 1 in the JavaEE Web Application Development series. As we go through these next several tutorials, we will be learning how to develop web applications using Java and MySQL and SQL on the back end, and we'll be using HTML and JavaScript and jQuery on the front end to develop a web application. This is not a beginner's course. We're expecting that you already have a basic working knowledge of Java programming, that you know some HTML as well as JavaScript and jQuery. We'll touch on some things, but we'll move quickly through that. So the application that we're going to be building as we go through these tutorials is an auction website. So someone will be able to log in and list a product for sale, upload photos and descriptions, and then other users can log in and bid on products and things like that. Um, the tools that we'll be walking through, all the tools and things that we're going to be using, we're going to start with Eclipse. Eclipse is our development environment that we'll be working in. And so there are, in the written documentation, there are installation and configuration instructions that show you how to download all of the different packages that we'll be using, like Eclipse and Tomcat and your Java JDK and all of that. So you can walk through that. We expect that you have all those things downloaded and set up on your machine already. I have extracted my Eclipse download into the Eclipse directory. You can see here that there's just an executable. Since we're going to be using Eclipse so frequently, I'm going to go ahead and pin it to our taskbar, and then we will start here and open up Eclipse. When we launch Eclipse, the first thing that it is going to want to know is where we're going to create our projects. I have set up on my E drive a projects folder, so we'll put all of our web apps into this project folder. So all of our Eclipse projects will be stored under there. So we'll hit OK. You can configure that to whatever directory is appropriate for your environment or your machine. So then Eclipse is going to initialize here and launch. Now, the first time we start Eclipse, we're going to get kind of an introductory window. A couple of quick notes here. There are several different flavors of Eclipse. Eclipse can be used with a wide range of different programming languages and tools and frameworks. The version that we have downloaded is Eclipse for JavaEE. So make sure that you have the JavaEE version. If not, you'll want to go and download that version instead. To start, we will click on this workbench icon up here. And when we click on that, we get basically a blank Eclipse workbench. You can see up here in the top right that we are using the JavaEE perspective. You could actually have different perspectives set up in Eclipse and kind of move between different frameworks or languages, but we're going to stick with JavaEE here for our project. So the first thing we're going to do is obviously create our project. So we're going to go to the File menu, click on New. Most web projects that we'll be working with are dynamic web projects. However, we're going to be using a toolkit, a tool called Maven. Maven is provided by Apache. It is free, and Maven does a lot of the background work, setting up our project and doing a lot of things for us to make managing our project quite a bit easier. Maven will manage all of our dependencies. It will go out and download any libraries, any jar files that we need. Maven will manage building and compiling our project. Maven will also manage deploying our project to a web server. So we're going to use Maven. So we'll click on File, New, Maven Project, and then the Maven wizard will come up here. Maven is asking where we're going to put our project. We're going to say that we are going to go ahead and use the default workspace location. That's what we specified when Tomcat started. So that's E:projects, which is fine. We'll click on Next. Now, when you're using Maven, there are several different archetypes, and these are different kind of frameworks, different kind of formulas that you can use depending on the tools and the libraries and the frameworks that you are going to use for your project. Now, we're going to be using a framework called Jersey. It's provided by Glassfish, which is an Oracle um, library that's made available. Jersey will facilitate all of the communications between our web pages, our client, and our Java server. So Maven does have archetypes for Jersey. However, they're not here by default, but we can pull them in. So we're going to click on this configure button, and then we're going to say add remote catalog. Now I have a link here that I'm going to pull up. We're going to put in this link, http repo1.maven.org/maven2. What this is a link to a site that contains a list of a bunch of Maven archetypes. Oops. So we'll call that Maven archetypes, and we'll hit OK and OK. And then when we do that, you'll see here, Eclipse now is going to that website and pulling down a whole bunch of archetypes, kind of project kind of formulas for different types of projects. As I mentioned, we want to use Jersey. So in the filter, I'm going to type in Jersey. And these are all the different Jersey archetypes we can use. We want to use the one from Glassfish. This archetype is called Jersey Quick Start Web App. And this is the latest version 2.23. So this is what we want to use. And we'll click on Next. Now we need to name our project. Java has this unique naming convention. For the purposes of this tutorial, we are going to assume that we have a company called globaltech.com. And so all of the projects that GlobalTech works on are going to fall under a group, this group ID. So for our group ID, we're going to specify com.globaltech. So all of our projects would go under this group ID. The artifact ID is the actual project that we are working on right now. And this is our auction website. So we're going to call it auction site. So it puts that all together. Our package for this application is called com.globaltech.auction-site. So that's all we need to tell Maven, and we'll hit finish. And now Maven is going to do a bunch of work for us. Right now, Maven is downloading a bunch of libraries and jar files for Jersey. It is configuring a bunch of files and projects that we will see here in a moment for our website. And it's setting up all kinds of compilation stuff, and it is done here. So let's take a look at what Maven has given us. We have a whole project here. We have a couple of issues that we'll need to look at, but basically, this is a Maven project that we've created. There are a few things that we're interested in. Let's start here in the source directory. This is where all of our source code will go. Under source main, you'll see 3 different directories. The Java directory is where all of our server code, our Java code will go. Com, GlobalTech, auction site. And you can see that Maven has created kind of a simple starter Java file for us that we're going to actually end up getting rid of. The web app directory is where all of our JavaScript, HTML, client-side code will go. This is all of the web pages for our application. Again, Maven has created a kind of a blank starter page for us. Using Java server pages, we are not going to use that technology, and so I'm going to go ahead and delete this page, and that's going to clear up this first error for us. We will replace that in a moment. We'll walk through that. The other thing that we can take note of right now is there is a file called pom.xml. This XML file is all of the information that Maven needs for our project. When you open an XML file in Eclipse, it will often open in this form mode. I don't particularly like that, so I'm going to click on this tab here, and we'll see the raw XML. This is kind of the master file for our project. And we're actually, as we go through next steps in the tutorials, we're going to be adding to this pom.xml, but I just wanted to show you a couple things to start. The compiler says that we're using Java 1.7 or the version 1.7 of the of Java and 2.51 of the compiler. Here in this dependencies section, this is where it's saying we're using Glassfish Jersey, and this will cause Maven to download all of the Jersey things. and import them into our project. So we'll get back to this pom.xml, but wanted you to see that to start. One other thing you can see here, we have a problem down here. In our project, we need to link up with a Java runtime. Any Java project needs to be linked to a Java runtime. It specifies one, but we are going to use one that we've downloaded. We downloaded the Java development kit in the configuration instructions. So we are going to point our project to that. So we're going to go to right-click on our project and click on Properties. If we go to the Java build path, and then we click on the Libraries tab, we'll see we've got this JRE system library, which is not the one that we want to use. So we're going to go ahead and remove that. And then we're going to add library. And we're going to add a JRE Java Runtime Environment System Library. And this is the latest version that I've installed. I'm actually going to, I'll click on alternate JRE. We could use this would work just fine, but I'll walk you through the steps here. I'll delete this. So we will add a standard virtual machine, a Java virtual machine, and we will point you to, when I installed this, it went on my computer, the C drive, usually goes into program files, Java, and we're going to use Java 1.7. We could use Java 1.8 as well. Either will work just fine. We happen to be using Java 1.7 for this project, but again, so this is the Java 1.7 JDK that we downloaded, and we look for the JRE, Java Runtime Environment directory under that. We could again use a Java 1.8, it would work just fine. So we've got this Java runtime here. We're going to select that we want to use this JDK that we just linked up. So this is the JDK that we're going to use for our project. We'll hit finish and OK, and all of our issues have gone away. So we have now a basic Maven JavaEE project using Jersey. Let's start here. I'm going to bring in, I have created a couple of files that we can use in our project. So they're actually out on my desktop. So I'm going to open this folder, dev files. I have this file index.html. You have that as well, so we'll copy that. This is our client-side code. We're going to go to the web app directory under source, web app, and I am going to paste that file in here. This is going to be the starting page for our little website. Let's open that up and take a look at what we've got. This is a simple HTML page. You can see we've got our doc type and our header. We've got a really simple body here. We've got a div that says, this is our index page, and I've also created another div with an ID of test1, and that div is empty. If you go up here, we're loading a script. We've got a script tag to load jQuery. jQuery is a third-party library. We're going to be using it pretty extensively. We assume that you have some familiarity with it. There are two ways to embed jQuery into your project. One is to link to it on this external site under googleapis.com. You can link to jQuery, and it will, when it loads your web page, it will go grab it from that site and pull it into your web app. We could also, if we wanted to, download jQuery and create a JS directory under here and copy it into there and use jQuery from there. However we want to bring it in, we just need to bring in jQuery. And then here is the functionality for this simple little index web page or intro web page. When we use jQuery, it will load a page. It will render all of the elements on the page. Once all the elements are on the page, jQuery calls a function called document_ready. So we are going to define document.ready. What document.ready is going to do is it's going to make an AJAX call. An AJAX call is a call to our server. AJAX is asynchronous JavaScript and XML. So we'll see here, whenever you see a $, that means we are using jQuery. We're going to call a jQuery function called Ajax. We're going to send it some parameters here. Before we get into this call, let's look at one other file. Maven created for us a file under the web.inf called web.xml. Web.xml provides information. I'm going to click on source so I can just see the raw XML. This provides information for our web application on how to talk to the server. So we use a servlet to talk from our web pages to our server. We're using a Jersey servlet. So you can see here, we're setting up a new servlet. We're giving it a name. Maven creates this Jersey web application as the name. I'm going to change this just for now. We are calling this our Global Tech auction site. And I'm going to go ahead and copy this. It's used in two places. The servlet name is used here and down here in the servlet mapping, which we'll talk about in a moment. So we're saying that we're creating a servlet for this web application. It's a Glassfish Jersey servlet, and the package that we are using is com.globaltech.auctionSite. So that will come back into play in a moment. Remember that. The servlet mapping section tells us that when we call a specific URL on our web application, go talk to the server. So for example, if we go to auctionsite.com, it's going to load a web page. In this case, it'll load index.html. What we're saying here is if you go to auctionsite.com/web API/something, don't go look for a web page to render. Go talk to the server. Go get some data from the server. So this URL pattern, if we see web API, that means go to the server. So we'll remember that for our index.html page. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. And now we're going to go back to index.html. Here's our Ajax call. We're going to call a URL to get data from the server. So it is auction site. We're going to change this to web API. That is what we used here. We said web API. So we're going to call auction site web API hello. So that's going to tell our web application, go to the server and look for a function called hello, which we'll create here in a moment, and get some data from the server. Now, when you are done getting data from the server, it will either succeed or fail. If it succeeds, we're going to call a function called render hello. If it fails, we'll call a function called fail hello. So here are these two simple functions. Basically, they are just going to take this empty div, test1 div, and put some data into it. So if this servlet call is successful, it will just take whatever data comes back from the server and put it into this div tag. If for some reason this servlet call fails, we're going to put an error message into this test1 div. We'll say error retrieving data from the server. So this is all we really need on the client side for our site. We'll go ahead and save this. Now let's work on the server side. I'm going to go ahead and delete the file that Maven created for us. I'm going to go back to our desktop and dev files. So here's a simple Java server class that I have created. We will copy that, and we're going to go to our Java com Global Tech auction site. And I'm going to paste that file into here. So this is the server side. We'll go ahead and hit refresh. And here's our code. This is the server code. Now the first thing that we'll note is the package is com.globaltech.auctionsite. If you remember from our web XML, we're saying that for this web application, our package is com.globaltech.auctionsite. So this is how it knows when we make a servlet call that this is the package that will implement the functions that we need. In this class, we're importing some classes that help us set up our servlets here. We're also importing some things that have to do with MySQL, and SQL will ignore those for now. So we're just defining a class and these path statements. So there are several annotations that we use here. let's start here with this path annotation. When we call the hello function, which if you go back to our HTML page, we're calling web API / hello. So that says when you get a call to hello, run this function. This function is going to produce an text HTML string for us. It's going to return some HTML to our page. A function can produce JSON, it can produce plain text, it can produce a Java object, it can produce an XML object, a variety of different things. And so in this case, we're just going to produce some HTML. The other thing to note that this is a GET request. So when you call to the server, you can either do a GET or a POST. In this case, we're doing a GET. So when we see a GET request to hello, we're going to run this function. This is a very simple function. It's basically going to create a string that is some simple HTML, a header tag that says hello world, and then a p tag that says RESTful service is running, and it's going to get the current date and time and embed that in this HTML. And then it's going to basically take that string and return it back to the client. Very simple, very straightforward. But then what's going to happen is that HTML is going to go back to this function, and we're going to put it in test1. So that's all we need for now to get this website up and running. We have all the code we need, so let's go ahead and build it and deploy it. I'm going to right-click on auction site. The first thing I'm going to do, just to make sure everything's up to date, go to Maven and say update project. Everything should be okay, but that's just going to make sure that Maven has got everything it needs. And then once that is done, we'll right-click and then we say run as. Now Maven sets up several things for us. We're going to click on this number 4, Maven build. Now, as I mentioned before, Maven can do a lot of different things for us. We can do a clean of our project, we can compile our project, we can install our project, we can deploy it to a website. We'll learn more about that, but for now, what we want Maven to do is do a clean and an install. So our goal, in this goals section, we say clean, install. That's all we need to do. And basically, this is going to clean out our website and build it from scratch. So we'll hit run, and Maven is going to take care of building our website for us. And we should see some information come through here as it does all its building. It's a fairly straightforward website, so we should be all set here. It says build success. We're all set and ready to go. So now we're going to deploy this web application to a Tomcat server. We're going to use Tomcat to serve up our website. In our configuration instructions, we have downloaded Tomcat, set that up. So what's going to happen is there's this target directory. When we deploy, Maven is going to take all the code, bundle it all together, and put it into this target directory, and then push it out to our web server. So we'll watch that happen. We're going to right-click on auction site, say run as, and then run on server. So the web server has said that we're going to run on is Apache. So expand that, and we're going to run on a Tomcat 7 server. We're running it here on our local machine, local host, and I'm just going to leave the server name as is. We'll click on next. Now we need to tell Eclipse where Tomcat is. So I'm going to browse. When I downloaded this, I installed it out on my E drive in this Apache Tomcat 7.0.70 directory. So that's all we need to do is specify that. This is where Tomcat lives, and then we're going to go ahead and make sure that we're using that same JDK that we used to compile this project with. Then we go ahead and say finish, and Maven again is going to go through and do all the work to, this happens on occasion. It's just that kind of Maven gets ahead of itself. So basically what has happened, it's created our server, but it started to push it out before everything was done. So I'm going to go ahead and do run as and say run on server one more time. This is the server we just defined, hit finish, and now it's going to go ahead and go. Now Tomcat is starting up. Everything looks good here. It's pushing out all of the code. It has started everything up. And you see that our web application is running. You can run your browser from inside here in Eclipse. I prefer to do it from a separate browser. So I'm going to go ahead and close this. I'm going to go into Chrome, open up a new tab here. So our server is running at localhost. Port 8080 is the default. And we're going to go to auction site. So we hit that, and you see what's happened. You've got, this is our index page. I'm going to go back here. That is this div. This is our index page. And then test one got populated with a bunch of information. RESTful service is running at this time and date. And you can see again, that comes from the server. Hello world, our RESTful service is running at this date and time. So if I refresh this, you will see the time update. So our web service is up and running. Now, if I do something wrong, for example, so if I'm going to say call hello2, and now we see there is no hello2 defined in here. So it's going to go to the server and say, run the hello2 function. And the server is going to say, well, I don't know what hello2 is. And it's going to return us an error. So we'll reload this now, saying error retrieving data from the server. That means that this servlet call failed, and then it populated it there. So I'm going to go ahead and put this back so that it's succeeding again, and save that. And then we will refresh our web page, and we will see that our simple web application is up and running. So it doesn't do much yet, but we've got all of the basic infrastructure in place. We've got Java, we've got Jersey, we've got jQuery making our calls to our server and getting data back. In the next tutorials, we will start to build out our database and SQL models and wire that into our web application.